My wife invited her whole family over to watch her hand me divorce papers on my birthday. Surprise. I'm leaving you for someone who isn't a disappointment, she said. Her dad actually laughed and said they never thought she'd really marry someone so beneath her. They even had champagne ready to toast my misery. I just smiled, signed the papers, and walked out. Now, exactly 6 months later, she was sleeping in her car outside my house, texting me nonstop, begging me to talk. I never thought I'd be writing something like this. Part of me still can't believe it really happened. But here we are. Fair warning, this one's going to be long. So, I turned 34 last Saturday. Not a big milestone or anything, but my wife, well, ex-wife soon, Julie, told me she was planning something special. She'd been acting oddly cheerful the whole week, always on her phone, smiling to herself, being secretive. I figured maybe she was putting together a surprise party or something sweet, especially after all the tension between us lately. Things had been off. Not screaming matches, just that cold, distant kind of tension that's somehow worse. We'd been married 6 years, met in college. She was this stunning business major from a wealthy family. I was the broke scholarship guy juggling 3 jobs and surviving on ramen. Classic story. Her family never liked me. Her dad, yes, his name is actually Bronson, like a villain from some 80s movie, always made snide remarks about my background at every holiday. Her mom would ask about that little job I had, even after I got promoted to team lead. And Julie? She was constantly posting about our apartment on Instagram, acting like it was some cozy little shack we were bravely surviving in, when really it was the best we could afford while I was working overtime to save for a house. She kept comparing our life to her cousin Nova's. Nova married some hedge fund guy and lived in a mansion. The last few months, Julie was spending way more time with her family. She'd come home late from work events, smelling like expensive cologne, giggling at texts from people who clearly weren't me. I wasn't stupid, I had my suspicions. But I kept thinking, if I just worked harder, got another promotion, maybe things would get better. So, back to my birthday. I came home from work. Yes, I had to work on my birthday, yay adult life, and the apartment was empty. Julie texted me, saying to meet her at her parents' place for my surprise. Weird, since their house was the last place I'd want to celebrate anything, but I thought maybe she was trying to fix things. I showed up at their suburban mansion, and Julie met me at the door with this weird fake smile. Inside, the living room was packed. Her parents, her sister Annabelle, a couple cousins, and some family friends. Everyone had champagne glasses. There was this weird silence when I walked in. Julie said, "Todd, we have something special for your birthday." Her dad actually snickered. Not laughed. Snickered, like a cartoon villain. I honestly thought maybe they'd gotten me a car or something, which is dumb in hindsight. Julie pulled a manila envelope from behind her back, and for a split second, I thought maybe it was plane tickets. Then she said it. "Surprise, I'm leaving you for someone who isn't a disappointment." The whole room went dead silent, except her dad, who started laughing like it was the best joke ever. I stood there stunned, trying to figure out what the hell was happening. Then her dad said, "We never thought she'd actually marry someone like you. Thank God she came to her senses." Julie shoved the envelope in my hands. Divorce papers. Already filled out, just waiting for my signature. Her mom popped the champagne and started handing out glasses. They'd planned the whole thing like it was a party. I don't know what they were expecting. Maybe for me to break down, cry, beg her to stay. But something in me just shut off. I looked at all their smug faces, at the woman I thought I'd grow old with, and I felt nothing, like I was watching a scene from a movie. I asked Julie for a pen. Her smile twitched a little. Guess that wasn't the reaction she expected. Her dad handed me his fancy Mont Blanc. I walked over to their spotless white marble counter, spread out the papers, and signed every single page without saying a word. No one said a thing. Just the sound of my pen scratching the paper, and someone awkwardly clearing their throat. When I was done, I looked at Julie and said, "Thanks for the birthday gift. Best one I've ever gotten." Then I walked out. No slamming the door, no yelling. Just left. The looks on their faces when I didn't break down? Almost worth the whole stunt. I got in my car and just drove. No destination, just away. I ended up at this grimy little dive bar where nobody knew me. Ordered a whiskey. Then another. Stared at my phone as Julie's texts started coming in. "Why didn't you say anything? Are you seriously not going to fight for us? You're just proving my point by walking away." Somewhere, around my third drink, the shock wore off and something else took over. Not blind rage, but that cold, clear kind. The kind that makes you want to take someone's whole world apart, piece by piece. What Julie and her family didn't realize was that I knew things. 6 years in that family, being treated like help. You pick up more than they think. You hear things. You see things. Send me the next part when you're ready. I'll keep the bye. Flow going exactly as you want. Things. Maybe try again. Start over. For a second, I saw the Julie I met in college. Not the one who planned my public humiliation, but the girl who used to make ramen with me at 2 a.m. in our tiny dorm kitchen. But then I remembered everything. The smug smile, the champagne, her dad laughing like he'd won a bet. And I just stood there and said, "You made your choice. I'm just finally respecting it." I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just walked past her, grabbed my last box, and left. Since then, it's been quiet. The legal side is nearly wrapped up. Larry's handled most of it, and I've barely had to deal with Julie directly. I blocked her number after one last text. That said, I didn't know how good I had it. That one almost got to me. Almost. But here's the thing. I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. I've reconnected with old friends, started a side hustle I never had time for before, even adopted a dog from a local shelter. His name's Max, and he's a stubborn little beast, but he's loyal. Unlike some people I know, the gym's become my sanctuary. I'm stronger, not just physically but mentally. There's something empowering about taking all that pain and turning it into muscle, routine, control. I still have bad days, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I wake up and think I'm back in that old life. But then I hear Max snoring like a tractor and realize I'm not. To anyone out there going through something similar, you're not alone. You're not weak for feeling broken, but don't let that brokenness define you. Heal, quietly if you must. But rise. And when you do, don't just get revenge. Get better. Because the best part of this whole twisted story is that I'm not writing the next chapter out of spite. I'm writing it for me. So here's to new beginnings. And to never ever sharing a cloud account again. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. For a moment, all those memories came rushing back. Good ones, bad ones, the whole chaotic mess. But mostly, I remembered that birthday night. Her smug smile, her dad's toast, the applause. And I remembered how small I felt, like my life had just been written off as a joke by the people who were supposed to be my family. I didn't answer. Instead, I turned off my phone, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat out back with Max curled up at my feet. I could still see her car across the street, just sitting there. Part of me felt sorry for her, honestly. But a bigger part of me felt peace. Because I finally understood something. I didn't owe her closure. Not after the way she wrote me off. Not after the months I spent rebuilding what she tried to destroy. By sunrise, the car was gone. No note. No more texts. Just silence. That was 2 weeks ago. She hasn't tried again. Maybe she finally got the message. Maybe she's still hoping I'll reach out first, but I won't. Here's the thing. People say time heals everything. I don't know if that's true. But time clarifies. It strips away the noise, the hurt, the confusion. It shows you what matters and what never really did. I'm not angry anymore. I don't need revenge. I don't need apologies or explanations. I've got peace now. I've got a dog who thinks I'm a superhero because I throw a ball. I've got friends who actually like me for me. I've got a house that feels like home and a garage full of ugly old furniture I can't wait to turn into something beautiful. And Julie? She's just someone I used to know, someone I once loved, sure, but also someone I've finally let go of. If you're going through something similar, just know this. There is life on the other side. Not just survival, but actual life, joy, quiet mornings, laughing at stupid memes with your dog, pizza on Thursdays, peace. And sometimes that's more than enough. Sleeping in my car for 2 days. That's what actually got me out of bed that morning. When I looked out the window, there she was, reclined in the driver's seat of her white Audi, the same car her dad bought her for her 25th birthday. She once called it entry-level, even though it cost more than I made in 6 months. I debated what to do. The petty part of me wanted to just close the blinds and let her enjoy her little car camping moment. But I'm not a monster, so I threw on some sweats and a hoodie and went outside. The look on her face when I tapped the window was rough. Her makeup was smeared, hair unwashed, and she was wearing what looked like the same clothes from her last Instagram post 3 days ago. She scrambled to unlock the door, nearly falling out in her rush to talk. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Not BO, but that stale fast food and desperation scent you get from living in a car. The second thing was how much weight she'd lost. Julie was always thin, but now she looked almost gaunt. She started rambling, half crying, half talking, and it took a minute to make sense of it all. Apparently Ronan, the fair guy, wasn't just sleeping with her. He'd been leaking info about her family's business to competitors. When her dad found out, he fired Ronan, who then dumped Julie and disappeared with a bunch of confidential documents. But here's the kicker. Julie, in her infinite wisdom, had been covering for Ronan at work, fudging reports to make his numbers look better because she was in love. When everything came to light, her dad had enough. No more job at the family business, no more allowance, no more paid apartment. She'd been couch surfing for weeks, but burned through everyone's goodwill. Her last roommate kicked her out for not paying rent, which is how she ended up sleeping in her car outside my place as a last resort. I asked why she didn't just go back to her parents' mansion. And that's when she dropped the bomb. Her dad Bronson's business was under investigation for shady financial stuff that Ronan had exposed. Apparently, Mr. High and Mighty had been cooking the books for years. Their assets were frozen, and they'd had to downsize drastically while the investigation played out. The karmic justice was almost too perfect. I invited her inside, not because I was thinking about taking her back, but because it was cold. And I didn't want to be responsible for a hypothermic ex. She walked in and immediately started crying again, this time about how nice my place looked. It's literally just normal furniture and actual plants I've somehow kept alive. But compared to her car sleeping situation, it was the Ritz. We sat at my kitchen table while I made coffee, and she spilled everything. How her parents had pushed the divorce after finding out about Ronan, convincing her she could trade up while taking half my stuff. How they planned the birthday ambush to humiliate me and force a quick signature. How she realized within weeks she'd made a huge mistake, but pride kept her from admitting it. She actually said, "I thought you'd fight for me." I laughed, not meanly, just at the absurdity of it all. She orchestrated that public humiliation, told me I was a disappointment, handed me divorce papers on my birthday, and expected me to beg her to reconsider or write some heartfelt letter about how I couldn't live without her. I asked what she wanted now. More tears, then she laid it out. She wanted to try again. She said she'd learned her lesson, grown as a person over 6 months. Apparently, with no job, no money, no prospects, and her expensive degree worthless without her dad's connections, she thought. Maybe she could move in with me while we figured things out. I let her finish. Then I did something that surprised even me. I thanked her. I thanked her for the divorce, for showing me exactly who she and her family were, and for forcing me to rebuild my life on my own terms. The last 6 months were hard but weirdly liberating. For the first time since college, I was making choices based on what I wanted, not what would please her or impress her family. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Then came more tears and bargaining. She said she'd do anything to fix things. She'd changed. She'd never appreciated what she had. I told her she could crash on my couch for one night, because it was late and I wasn't sending anyone to sleep in their car. But in the morning, she needed to figure out her next steps that didn't involve me. The look on her face was almost comical. I don't think Julie had ever been told no in her entire life. Morning came. I made breakfast because that's what decent humans do. While we ate, her phone rang. It was her dad. She put it on speaker. Habit, I guess. And I heard Bronson's voice for the first time since that birthday party. Gone was the smug condescension, replaced by desperation. Their business was barely hanging on. Investors were pulling out left and right. They needed help from someone with industry connections, and Julie had mentioned I'd been doing okay. He actually asked if I'd meet with him to discuss possible opportunities for mutual benefit. I almost choked on my coffee. The same man who once laughed at me for being beneath his daughter was now practically begging for help. Julie looked at me with this strange mix of hope and embarrassment. I told Bronson I wasn't interested in any business deals with him. But I knew someone who might be able to help, Mia, the woman I'd been. I've been seeing this woman, Mia, for the past month. She's actually amazing at helping struggling businesses rebuild their reputation. We're just friends for now, but honestly, it's the healthiest relationship I've had in years. There was a long silence on the phone, then Bronson asked for her contact info. I gave it to him, ended the call, and looked at Julie. The realization was dawning on her face. Not only was I not taking her back, but I had moved on. She left about an hour later with a backpack of essentials and an Uber to her sister Annabelle's place, who had agreed to let her stay temporarily. As she was leaving, she asked if I would ever forgive her. I told her I already had, not for her sake, but for mine. Holding on to anger was exhausting, and I had furniture to refinish and a dog to adopt. Speaking of which, meet Max, the 3-legged rescue pit bull I adopted last weekend. Tax included in the post. He drools on my couch and steals my socks, but he's the best decision I've made in years. So, that's the end of the Julie saga. 6 months ago, I was celebrating my devastation with champagne. Now I'm sitting here thinking about how life comes at you fast, from sleeping in her car outside my house to where I am today. I don't know what happens next for her. I hope she figures herself out. I hope her family learns something from all of this. But mostly, I'm just looking forward to all the things I never got to do when I was trying to fit into their world. Traveling without worrying about luxury accommodations, making furniture without being told it's embarrassing, getting a dog that sheds all over everything. For everyone who followed this whole crazy story, thanks for the support, the advice, and for occasionally calling me out when I was being a dick. It helped more than you know. Sometimes you have to come out the other side of a nightmare to realize it was actually the best thing that ever happened to you.